Hi, guys, it's me again, and we're going to finish up part one of our notes on relative dating. And when we do that, what we're going to do right now is we're really going to talk about index fossils. And remember, to be an index fossil, something has to be easily recognizable, so it can't be deteriorated so much that we can't tell what it is. It has to be widespread, which means we have to be able to see it in multiple outcrops, but it also has to be short lived. So, since it's short lived, we can only find it within one layer. So if you look over here, we have four outcrops, and then each outcrop has four layers. So we have this layer of probably some kind of sandstone where it's dotted. We have this layer of probably shale that has the kind of flat hash marks on it, another layer of sandstone, and then usually limestone's represented with kind of the brick look. So we have four layers within four outcrops. So we're going to look at these and we're going to try to determine which one is our index fossil. So whenever we look, remember we have to be easily recognizable. All of these fossils are easily recognizable, so they all hit that rule. The second thing that we have to look for is it has to be widespread. So for it to be widespread, we have to be able to see it in each of our outcrops. So if I look at my crinoid over here, which is that screw looking one, fun little fact, crinoids are Missouri state fossil. When I look at that crinoid over here, it's not widespread because I only see it in outcrop 4. If I look at outcrops 1, 2, or 3, my crinoid's not there. So I know that my crinoid can't be my index fossil. So then let's go and let's look at another one. Let's look at this handy little trilobite. The trilobites are the ones that kind of look like cockroaches. And cockroaches can be eliminated for a couple of reasons. First of all, it only shows up, it shows up in all 4 of our outcrops. But whenever we look at it, we can eliminate it because it shows up within 2 different layers of this first outcrop. It actually shows up within 2 different layers of outcrop 3 and outcrop 4 too. So since it shows up in a couple of different layers, it really kind of keeps us from being able to know which time period it came in. Same thing if we look at this little, it looks to me like a moth. I think it's actually a shell because we're in all of these other things are sea creatures. So if we look at the shell that looks like a moth, which is kind of confusing, it can be eliminated too because it shows up in multiple layers of outcrop 2. So since it shows up in multiple layers, it shows up in layer, if we count from the bottom, it shows up in layer 2, 3, and 4 of that outcrop. So that one can be eliminated because it occurred during multiple periods of time, which means that it's just going to be this conch-shaped shell. Think that's like the shell that Ursula wore in The Little Mermaid. If we look at that conch-style shell, that shows up in all 4 outcrops. So that's rule number 1. It's easily recognizable. We can clearly tell that all of those look the same. They all look like conch shells. And then we can only see it in one layer. So in outcrop 1, we only have it in layer 3. Outcrop 2, we only have it in layer 3. Outcrop 3, we only have it in layer 3. Outcrop 4, we only have it in layer 3. So we can start to compare and be like, oh, okay, we know that we know that we can kind of start to match our rocks up and age them together based on that. And then really these next few slides that you can go through just kind of explain that process again, cross out the one so you can refer back to that. On this last one, we can use our index fossils to correlate or match our layers. So for example, we have these 3 outcrops, and we're going to try to determine which layers are the oldest and which layers are the youngest. And so we've really got to kind of start to do a couple of things. First of all, we know that if it's at the top, it can't be the oldest. That's rule number 1. So we know we got to be looking kind of down towards the bottom. But if you look at our bottom layers, they're not all exactly the same. They're not all the same type of rock. So we have the little hash marks, we have the little bricks, we have more little hash marks. So they're not all exactly the same. They also don't all have exactly the same type of fossil in them. So we can't quite compare them based on their fossils either. So we've got to start looking at some other things. And we can start by looking at this trilobite. So here's this trilobite that's at the surface of outcrop 1. It's in that brick looking stuff, probably limestone. If we look down here, it's in the bottom, and then it's also in layer Q. It's the only time that trilobite appears. So since it's the only time that trilobite appears, we can, in each of the 3 outcrops, so it meets the index fossil rule, it's in each of the 3 outcrops. It only occurs in one layer of each of the 3 outcrops. So like if I look at this V, this little bird, it occurs in 2 outcrops. It occurs in outcrop 1 and outcrop 3, but it doesn't occur in outcrop 2. If I look at this little fern thingy, it only appears in outcrop 1 This not even easily recognizable, so it'd be hard to say. This claw only appears once. This little thing that looks like a taco only appears twice. So none of those hit the index fossil rule, but my trilobite does. So I can start to say, like, okay, layers A, layers K, and layers Q all have to be the same age. So if you picture then what I would do, and they kind of show it on the next one, I can start to basically line up my layers. So picture if I had these on index cards, I could start to line them up and I could correlate them, and then that's going to help me kind of see. So if I do that, I have to drop layer A and outcrop 1 down all the way down to the bottom. So if I drop that all the way down to the bottom, then I see, okay, there's layers B, C, D, and E. So that means that layer E has to be the oldest, because if you pictured, if I lined them up, like if I matched them up like index cards, that layer E would be way down below everything else. So layer E has to be the oldest of all of them. So then if we go and we look, so they've essentially made those little index cards, they've dropped them down. So layers A, K, and Q are all the same age. So that means that layers F and L are going to be the youngest, because once we line them up, they're on the bottom, or they're on the top, I'm sorry. And then layer E has to be the oldest because it's down at the bottom. And so that's how we take those correlations. So we correlate those index fossils, and that's how we can use that correlation to really determine which is the youngest. And these slides are really good. They're going to kind of explain it again. So if you're not sure, you can read back through those whenever you have to go to do that, because you will have to start doing some of this as we do our homework. And that's really going to be what you start to look at as you go throughout the unit. Okay, that's the end of me talking through both sets of notes. You'll need to make sure that you have filled out your handout. So either watch this video again and fill it out if you didn't fill it out where you went, or if you have any holes, correct those holes. These notes will be posted in Classroom so you can read through them. But once you have that filled out, you feel really comfortable with handout G2, then you need to go up, show it to your teacher, and you'll be able to take a quiz over this. Remember, if you don't score an 80% or better on the quiz, then we're going to make you work through it again, because you've got to make sure that you get all this material. Okay? Have a great day, guys.